Alexander Sterling stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his 42nd floor office, gazing out at the bustling city below. At 35, he had built Sterling Industries from a small tech startup into a multinational corporation worth billions. His tailored suit fit perfectly over his athletic frame, and his dark hair was styled with the precision that matched everything else in his meticulously organized life. Yet despite all his success, there was an emptiness that no amount of money could fill. Alex had always dreamed of having a family, of hearing the patter of little feet in his penthouse apartment, of teaching his children to ride bikes and helping them with homework. But life had dealt him a cruel hand. 3 years earlier, a devastating car accident had left him with injuries that doctors said would make fatherhood impossible. The medical reports were clear and final. Alexander Sterling would never have biological children. The news had shattered him more than losing his parents in that same accident. While he could build companies and accumulate wealth, he couldn't build the one thing he wanted most: a family. His assistant, Margaret, had tried countless times to convince him to consider adoption or other alternatives, but Alex had withdrawn into his work. He poured his heart into building his empire, hoping that professional success might somehow ease the ache in his heart. The irony wasn't lost on him. Here he was, running a company that specialized in family-oriented technology, apps that helped parents track their children's activities, educational software for kids, smart home systems designed for busy families. Every day, he created products for the life he could never have. Welcome to Mr. Roman's Story Vault, where love, heartbreak, and second chances come alive in unforgettable stories. If you enjoy emotional journeys, filled with romance, twists, and powerful life lessons, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next story. It was a Tuesday morning like any other when Alex's carefully controlled world turned upside down. He was reviewing quarterly reports when Margaret's voice came through the intercom, unusually flustered. "Mr. Sterling, there's a situation at the front desk. Security is asking for you personally." Alex frowned. In all his years running the company, security had never needed him for anything at the front desk. "What kind of situation, Margaret?" "Sir, there are 2 young boys here, about 7 years old. They're asking for you specifically, and they claim you're their father." The reports slipped from Alex's hands, scattering across his mahogany desk. His heart began pounding as he tried to process what Margaret had just said. "That's impossible. There must be some mistake." "That's what we thought too, sir, but they know details about you that aren't public information. They know about your scar from the accident. They know you have a birthmark on your left shoulder, and they're carrying a letter addressed to you." Alex's mouth went dry. Only someone very close to him would know about those details. "I'll be right down." The elevator ride to the ground floor felt like an eternity. Alex's mind raced through possibilities, but none of them made sense. He was certain he had never fathered children. Despite his playboy reputation in his 20s, he had always been careful, and after the accident, the doctors had been very clear about his condition. When the elevator doors opened, Alex saw them immediately. 2 identical boys with dark hair and striking blue eyes that looked remarkably similar to his own. They were well dressed in matching navy blazers and khakis, sitting patiently on the modern leather chairs in the lobby. When they saw him, their faces lit up with recognition and joy. "Daddy!" they exclaimed in unison, jumping up and running toward him. Alex stood frozen as the 2 boys wrapped their arms around his legs, looking up at him with such pure love and excitement that his heart nearly stopped. The entire lobby fell silent, with employees and visitors staring at the unprecedented scene unfolding before them. "We found you, Daddy. Mama said we had to find you when she couldn't take care of us anymore," said one of the boys, his voice filled with innocent hope. "Are you really our daddy? You look just like Mama said you would," added the other, reaching up to touch Alex's face with tiny hands. Alex knelt down to their level, his voice barely a whisper. "What are your names, boys?" "I'm Lucas, and this is my brother Nathan," said the first boy proudly. "We're twins, just like Mama told us. She said you might not remember us because we were babies when you last saw us, but that you loved us very much." Nathan pulled a crumpled envelope from his pocket. "Mama wrote you a letter. She made us promise to give it to you when we found you." With trembling hands, Alex took the letter. His name was written on the front in delicate handwriting that seemed familiar, yet distant. As he stared at the envelope, fragments of memories began stirring in the back of his mind. Memories he had tried so hard to bury. Back in his office, with the twins sitting across from his desk sharing a bag of cookies, Margaret had found, Alex opened the letter with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The familiar handwriting brought back a flood of memories he had forced himself to forget. "My dearest Alex, if you're reading this, it means our boys found their way to you, just as I always knew they would. I pray you remember me, Isabella Martinez. We met 8 years ago at that charity gala for children's education. You wore a navy tuxedo, and I spilled red wine on your shirt while trying to avoid a photographer." Alex's breath caught. He did remember. Bella, beautiful, passionate Bella, with her warm brown eyes and infectious laugh. They had spent an incredible week together during his business trip to Barcelona. She was a teacher, working with underprivileged children, and her compassion and intelligence had captivated him completely. "I know you're confused and probably hurt that I never told you about the boys. When I discovered I was pregnant after you returned to New York, I tried to reach you, but your assistant said you were in meetings for weeks. I called and wrote letters, but they all seemed to disappear into the void of your busy corporate world. Then I saw the news about your accident and your parents. I watched from afar as you recovered, and I made a decision I'll regret for the rest of my life. I thought you had enough pain to deal with, and I was afraid that the responsibility of twin boys might overwhelm you during your recovery. I was young and scared, and I thought I was protecting you." Alex felt tears stinging his eyes as he continued reading. All those years, he had sons he never knew existed. "I've raised Lucas and Nathan to know about you, to love you even though they've never met you. I've shown them pictures I found online, told them stories about your kindness and strength. They know you're their father, and they've been asking when they can meet you since they learned to talk. Alex, I'm sick. The doctors say I have maybe a few months left. I have no family to take the boys, and foster care terrifies me. They need their father. They need you. I know this is overwhelming, and I know you probably think you can't handle raising children, but I've watched you from afar all these years. You've built something beautiful with your company, always focusing on families and children. You have so much love to give. The boys are smart, funny, and kind. Lucas loves science and building things with blocks. Nathan is artistic and loves to draw pictures. They're both excellent readers, and they help each other with everything. They're best friends, just like I always hoped they would be. I'm not asking you to forgive me for keeping them from you. I'm asking you to give them the love and stability they deserve. They're half of you, Alex, and they've been missing their father their whole lives. All my love, Isabella. P.S. They know they have a birthmark shaped like a star on their left shoulders, just like their daddy." Alex set the letter down and looked at the two boys, who were quietly coloring on paper Margaret had brought them. His sons. These beautiful, perfect children were his sons. "Boys," he said softly, and they both looked up with matching smiles. "Can you tell me about your mama?" Lucas's face grew serious. "Mama is in the hospital. She gets really tired, and sometimes she can't breathe good. But she made us promise to find you because she said you would take care of us forever and ever." Nathan nodded solemnly. "She said you're the strongest, kindest daddy in the whole world, and that you've been waiting to meet us, just like we've been waiting to meet you." Alex felt his heart breaking and healing at the same time. These children had been living with the knowledge that their mother was dying, yet they faced it with such courage and hope. The next few weeks were the most challenging and rewarding of Alex's life. He had always been a man who planned everything meticulously, but suddenly he was thrust into the chaotic, beautiful world of parenthood with no preparation time. He immediately hired the best nanny service in the city, but quickly realized that the boys didn't want professional caregivers. They wanted him. They had waited 7 years to meet their father, and they weren't about to let him disappear into meetings and business calls. Alex found himself leaving work early for the first time in his career, learning about homework and bedtime stories, discovering that Lucas was afraid of thunderstorms and that Nathan only ate sandwiches cut into triangles. He learned that they both loved science museums and that they had inherited his competitive streak when it came to board games. The transformation in his life was remarkable. His sterile penthouse apartment was suddenly filled with toys, artwork taped to the refrigerator, and the constant chatter of two bright, curious boys. For the first time in years, Alex found himself smiling without effort. But the weight of Isabella's condition hung over everything. The boys knew their mother was sick, but they didn't fully understand the gravity of her situation. Alex struggled with how much to tell them while dealing with his own emotions, about reconnecting with the woman he had never really forgotten. 3 weeks after the boys had walked into his office, Alex made the decision he had been both longing for and dreading. He booked a flight to Barcelona to see Isabella. He left Lucas and Nathan with Margaret, who had quickly become their surrogate grandmother, doting on them with the affection of someone who had watched their father grow from a young entrepreneur into the man he was today. The hospital in Barcelona was modern and clean, but the antiseptic smell and hushed tones immediately reminded Alex of his own long recovery after the accident. When he found Isabella's room, he hesitated outside the door, his heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and fear. She was sleeping when he entered, and for a moment he could see the young woman he had fallen for 8 years ago. Her dark hair was thinner now, and her face was pale, but she was still beautiful in a way that made his chest tighten with emotion. When she opened her eyes and saw him, her face lit up with a radiant smile that hadn't changed at all. "Alex," she whispered, her voice weak but filled with joy. "You came." He moved to her bedside, taking her fragile hand in his. "Of course I came. Bella, our boys, they're incredible." Tears rolled down her cheeks. I know I should have told you sooner. I know I stole years from all of you, and I'm so sorry." Alex shook his head, squeezing her hand gently. "We can't change the past, but we can make the most of the time we have now. Tell me about them. Tell me about their first steps, their first words, everything I missed." For the next several hours, Isabella shared 8 years of memories. She told him about Lucas's first word being dada, and how he used to build elaborate block towers and knock them down with toy cars. She described Nathan's artistic talent, how he drew pictures of a family with a tall man he called Daddy even though he had never met Alex. She showed him photo albums filled with birthdays, Christmas mornings, first days of school and family vacations. In every picture, the boys were smiling, but Alex could see something. In their eyes, a longing, a sense that their family wasn't complete. "They used to ask me every birthday if you would come," Isabella confessed. "I always told them maybe next year, because I couldn't bear to take away their hope. They never stopped believing they would meet you someday." As the days passed, Alex spent every moment he could at Isabella's bedside. They talked about everything. Their week together 8 years ago, the paths their lives had taken, their dreams for the boys' future. Despite the tragic circumstances, Alex found himself falling in love with her all over again. Alex had been in Barcelona for a week when Isabella's condition took a turn for the worse. The doctors called him in the middle of the night, their voices grave, as they explained that her time was now measured in days, not weeks. Alex made the hardest decision of his life. He called Margaret and asked her to bring the boys to Barcelona immediately. Lucas and Nathan deserved the chance to say goodbye to their mother, and Isabella needed to see them one more time. When the boys arrived, they ran into the hospital room with the resilience that only children possess, accepting their mother's condition with a matter-of-fact attitude that both amazed and broke Alex's heart. "Mama, we found Daddy just like you said we would," Lucas announced proudly, climbing carefully onto the bed beside her. "And he's teaching us how to play chess, and he makes the best pancakes, and he reads us stories." "With different voices for all the characters," Nathan added, taking his mother's other hand. Isabella looked at Alex over their heads, her eyes filled with gratitude and love. "I'm so proud of all my boys," she whispered. Over the next few days, they became an unconventional family. Alex slept in the chair beside Isabella's bed, while the boys curled up on a cot the nurses had brought in. During Isabella's lucid moments, they talked about the future, about traditions Alex should start with the boys, about the kind of men she hoped they would become. "Promise me something," Isabella said to Alex during one of their quiet moments while the boys were sleeping. "Promise me you'll tell them stories about us, about how we met, about the week we had together, about how much we loved each other, even though we were apart." "I promise," Alex said, his voice thick with emotion. "And Bella, I need you to know that I never forgot about you. That week we spent together, it was the happiest I'd ever been. If I had known about the boys, nothing would have kept me away." She smiled weakly. "I know. I always knew. That's why I knew you'd be the perfect father for them." Isabella passed away peacefully on a Sunday morning, with Alex holding her hand and the boys sleeping beside her. Her last words were, "Take care of our boys," and Alex promised her with tears streaming down his face that he would love them enough for both parents. The next few weeks were a blur of arrangements, legal proceedings, and grief. Alex had to navigate not only his own loss, but also help two 7-year-old boys process the death of the only parent they had ever known. Lucas and Nathan grieved differently. Lucas became quiet and clingy, wanting Alex near him at all times. Nathan threw himself into his art, drawing picture after picture of their mother surrounded by angels. Alex learned that grief with children meant answering impossible questions, holding them while they cried, and somehow finding strength he didn't know he possessed. The legal process of establishing paternity and gaining custody was expedited given the circumstances, but it still required DNA tests, interviews, and mountains of paperwork. Through it all, the boys never doubted that Alex was their father. Their faith in him gave him the courage to face each challenge. 6 months after that life-changing Tuesday, Alex's world had transformed completely. The penthouse apartment had been renovated to include 2 adjoining bedrooms for the boys, filled with everything young children could want, but more importantly, filled with love and security. Alex had restructured his entire approach to work. He now had set hours when he was unavailable for anything except true emergencies. Lucas and Nathan were his priority, and his employees quickly learned to respect that boundary. The boys thrived in their new environment. Lucas had joined the local chess club and was showing remarkable aptitude for strategic thinking. Nathan's artistic talents were being nurtured with private art lessons, and his drawings now included pictures of their new family, him, Lucas, and Alex, often with their mother watching over them from the clouds. Alex discovered that fatherhood came more naturally to him than he had ever expected. He found joy in helping with homework, teaching them to ride bikes in Central Park, and creating new traditions like Saturday morning pancakes and Sunday afternoon science experiments. The boys had also brought unexpected changes to his company. Inspired by his new perspective as a father, Alex launched a new initiative, focused on products for single parents and grieving families. Sterling Industries developed apps that helped children cope with loss, educational programs that could be accessed by kids in various living situations, and support networks for families going through major transitions. 1 year after becoming a father, Alex was settling into their new routine when an unexpected opportunity arose. Lucas's second-grade teacher, Miss Sarah Chen, had requested a meeting about Lucas's exceptional performance in mathematics. Sarah was beautiful, with kind eyes and a gentle manner that immediately put both Alex and Lucas at ease. She was passionate about education and had a special gift for connecting with children who had experienced trauma or loss. During their meeting, Alex found himself genuinely interested in her thoughts about education and child development. "Lucas mentioned that you've been reading science books together," Sarah said, her eyes lighting up. "It's wonderful to see a parent so engaged in their child's learning." "I have to admit, the boys have taught me as much as I've taught them," Alex replied. "Before they came into my life, I thought I knew what was important. They've shown me what actually matters." Over the following months, Alex found himself looking forward to school, events and parent-teacher conferences more than board meetings. Sarah always had insights about the boys' development, and their conversations gradually shifted from purely academic to more personal topics. The boys adored Sarah, often asking if she could come to dinner or join them for their weekend activities. Alex began to realize that his feelings for Sarah were growing beyond respect and friendship, but he was cautious about introducing romance into their carefully balanced family dynamic. Just as Alex was beginning to consider asking Sarah on a proper date, his world was shaken once again. Margaret rushed into his office on a Thursday afternoon with a look of shock and confusion on her face. "Mr. Sterling, there's someone here to see you. She says she's Isabella Martinez." Alex felt the blood drain from his face. "That's impossible, Margaret. Isabella died over a year ago." "Sir, I know this sounds crazy, but she looks exactly like the woman in the photos you showed me. She has identification, and she's asking about Lucas and Nathan." Alex's hands trembled as he tried to process what Margaret was telling him. Could it be possible that Isabella was alive? Had there been some terrible mistake? The woman Margaret brought to his office was indeed Isabella, thinner than before, with shorter hair, and wearing different clothes, but unmistakably the woman he had held as she died in that Barcelona hospital. "Alex," she said softly, tears streaming down her face. "I know this is impossible to understand, but I need to explain." Alex stared at her, his mind reeling. "You're dead. I watched you die. I held your hand. The boys and I attended your funeral." Isabella's face crumpled with grief and shame. "That was my twin sister, Maria. We discovered each other when I was already sick. She had been searching for me her whole life after we were separated as babies." The room spun around Alex as he tried to process this revelation. "Your twin sister?" "Maria had been living in a different part of Spain, under our birth name, Martinez. When she found me in the hospital, I was unconscious from treatment. The doctors told her I was dying, and she made a decision that changed everything." Isabella sat down heavily, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maria pretended to be me. She wanted to give the boys closure, to let them say goodbye to their mother. She thought it would be easier for them than wondering why I had just disappeared. But she died," Alex said, his voice hollow with shock. "Maria was sick too. We found out we both had the same rare genetic condition. She had been hiding her illness, and when she took my place, her condition deteriorated rapidly. She died thinking she was helping my sons have peace." Alex felt angry, confused, and heartbroken all at once. "So where were you? Where have you been while I've been raising our sons and grieving the woman I thought was you?" "I was in a specialized treatment facility in Switzerland. The doctors there had an experimental treatment that wasn't available anywhere else. I couldn't contact anyone during the treatment. I was in isolation for months, and when I finally recovered enough to think clearly, I discovered what Maria had done." Isabella reached into her purse and pulled out medical documents and photos. "I've been healthy for 6 months now. The treatment worked. I came as soon as I could travel, but I didn't know how to approach you. How do you tell someone that the person they mourned and buried wasn't who they thought it was?" The weeks that followed Isabella's return were perhaps the most challenging of Alex's life. The boys were overjoyed to have their mother back, but they were also confused and hurt. They had processed her death, had learned to live without her, and had formed a deep bond with Alex as their primary parent. "Why did you leave us, Mama?" Nathan asked during one of their first family dinners. "We thought you were dead, and we were so sad." Isabella struggled to explain the situation in terms the boys could understand. "Mama was very sick, and I had to go far away to get better. My sister Maria loved you both so much that she pretended to be me so you could say goodbye. But that wasn't really me." Lucas, always the more analytical of the twins, frowned. "But we saw you die. We were there. That was Aunt Maria. She looked exactly like me, but she was a different person who loved you very much," Isabella explained, tears in her eyes. Alex watched his family struggle with this impossible situation and felt torn between relief that Isabella was alive and anger that their lives had been turned upside down once again. The boys had finally found stability, and now everything was uncertain once more. But the biggest complication was Sarah. Alex had been building a relationship with her, and the boys had grown attached to her as well. Sarah had been understanding when Alex explained the situation, but he could see the pain in her eyes as she realized that the family she had been falling in love with was no longer hers to love. "I understand," Sarah had said when Alex told her about Isabella's return. "The boys need their mother, and you need to figure out what this means for your family." "Sarah, I care about you. This doesn't change how I feel," Alex had tried to explain. "But it changes everything else," she replied sadly. "I won't be the person who stands in the way of a family reuniting. Now tell me, if you were in Alex's position, who would you choose? The woman from your past, the mother of your children, or the woman who stood by you, loved your boys, and helped heal your heart? Drop your answer in the comments while we continue this dramatic twist." As the months passed, Alex found himself in an impossible situation. Isabella was living in a nearby apartment, spending time with the boys every day as they all adjusted to her being alive. She was the same woman he had fallen in love with, but she was also a stranger who had missed 2 years of their children's lives. The boys were struggling too. They loved their mother, but they had bonded deeply with Alex and didn't understand why the three of them couldn't all live together like a normal family. They missed Sarah, who had been a constant presence in their lives, and they didn't understand why she couldn't be part of their family anymore. "Daddy, why can't Miss Sarah come to dinner anymore?" Lucas asked one evening. "And why doesn't Mama live with us?" Alex struggled to answer. The truth was that he loved Isabella, he always had, but he had also developed deep feelings for Sarah, and the boys clearly missed the stability and happiness they had found with her in their lives. Isabella seemed to sense his internal conflict. During one of their conversations while the boys were sleeping, she brought up the subject that had been hanging between them. "Alex, I can see that you've moved on. The boys talk about Miss Sarah constantly, and I can see how happy she made all of you. Bella, you're their mother, you're alive, and that changes everything," Alex replied. "But does it? I was gone for 2 years. You built a life, became a father, found love. I can't just walk back in and expect everything to go back to the way it was 8 years ago." Alex looked at her with surprise. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that maybe what's best for the boys isn't necessarily what seems most traditional. They need stability, love, and parents who are happy. They've been through enough upheaval." Isabella's suggestion led to a series of conversations that challenged everything Alex thought he knew about family and love. She proposed something that seemed impossible at first, but gradually began to make sense. "What if we didn't try to force a traditional family structure?" Isabella suggested. "What if we created something new, something that works for all of us?" Alex was intrigued but confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean co-parenting in the truest sense. We live near each other, we share custody, we make decisions together, but we don't pretend to be something we're not. You and I, we loved each other once, but we're different people now. We've both grown and changed." Isabella paused, choosing her words carefully. "The boys love Sarah. I can see it in their eyes when they talk about her. They need consistency and love, not confusion, and adults who are pretending to feel things they don't really feel." Over several weeks, Alex, Isabella, and eventually Sarah had difficult, but honest conversations about what would be best for Lucas and Nathan. It was unconventional, but they decided to try a co-parenting arrangement that honored everyone's feelings and relationships. Isabella would remain an active part of the boys' lives, sharing custody and parenting responsibilities with Alex. Sarah would continue to be part of their lives as well, as Alex's partner and someone the boys clearly loved and trusted. The new arrangement took time to develop naturally, but gradually it began to work. Isabella found an apartment in the same building as Alex, making it easy for the boys to move between their parents while maintaining consistency in their daily routines. Sarah slowly reintegrated into their lives, first as Lucas's teacher, then gradually as Alex's partner again, and eventually as someone the boys saw as a bonus parent figure. She and Isabella developed a respectful friendship, both recognizing that their shared love for the boys was more important than any awkwardness between them. The boys thrived under this arrangement. They had their mother back, they maintained their close bond with Alex, and they continued to benefit from Sarah's presence in their lives. Rather than feeling torn between different loyalties, they felt surrounded by adults who loved them and worked together for their benefit. Alex found that his feelings for both women evolved as well. His love for Isabella transformed into deep respect and genuine friendship, while his relationship with Sarah deepened into something mature and lasting. Both women supported his role as the boy's father, and he supported both of their roles in the boys' lives. 2 years after Isabella's dramatic return from the dead, the unconventional family had found their rhythm. Lucas and Nathan, now 11 years old, were thriving in school and in their personal lives. They had learned that family doesn't always look like what you expect, but that love comes in many forms. Alex had learned that being a father meant putting his children's needs above his own desires, even when that meant making difficult choices about his own relationships and happiness. He had discovered that love isn't possessive, it's generous and flexible and willing to create space for everyone who matters. Isabella had found her place as a mother who supported her children's happiness above all else. She had built a career as a children's counselor, helping other families navigate difficult transitions and losses. Her experience with her own family had given her unique insights into resilience and adaptation. Sarah had become a permanent part of their family structure, eventually, moving in with Alex and taking an active role in parenting the boys. Her relationship with Isabella had evolved into genuine friendship, and the boys saw both women as mother figures who offered different but equally valuable types of love and support. The boys had learned perhaps the most important lesson of all, that love multiplies rather than divides, and that families can be built in many different ways as long as they're built on foundations of honesty, respect, and genuine care for each other. 5 years after that first shocking Tuesday, when 2 boys walked into his office calling him Daddy, Alex stood at the altar preparing to marry Sarah. But this wasn't a traditional wedding that excluded anyone. It was a celebration that honored their entire unconventional family. Isabella stood as one of Sarah's bridesmaids, a symbol of how their family had learned to embrace love in all its forms. Lucas and Nathan served as ring bearers, beaming with pride as they watched their father marry someone they had come to love as deeply as any biological parent. In his wedding vows, Alex spoke about how becoming a father had taught him that love is finite, that the heart expands to accommodate everyone who deserves a place in it. He thanked Isabella for giving him the greatest gifts of his life, and he promised Sarah that their love would always make room for the children and relationships that had brought them together. Sarah's vows focused on how loving Alex had meant learning to love Lucas and Nathan, and how that love had led her to respect and appreciate Isabella as well. She promised to continue building their family on the foundation of openness and honesty that had brought them through their challenges. Even Isabella spoke at the wedding, expressing her gratitude that her boys were surrounded by so much love, and that she had found a way to be part of their lives while also supporting their happiness with Sarah. Alex's experience as an unexpected father had transformed not only his personal life, but his professional life as well. Sterling Industries had become a leader in developing technology and resources for non-traditional families. Single parents, co-parenting situations, and children dealing with loss and major life transitions. The company's flagship app, Family Connections, helped divorced parents, step-families, foster families, and other non-traditional family structures coordinate schedules, share important information, and maintain healthy communication. The app had been directly inspired by Alex's experience coordinating his own family's complex schedule and relationships. Lucas and Nathan had become unofficial consultants for the company's child-focused products, offering perspectives on what kids actually wanted and needed from family-oriented technology. Their input had led to several breakthrough products that made real differences in families' lives. Alex often spoke at conferences about balancing work and family life, sharing his story of how becoming a father had made him a better leader and businessman. He emphasized that taking care of his family hadn't hurt his career, it had enhanced it by giving him deeper insights into what really mattered to his customers and employees. As Lucas and Nathan reached their early teens, they continued to thrive under their unique family structure. Both boys were confident, well-adjusted, and remarkably mature for their ages, having learned early that families can be complicated, but that love and communication can overcome any challenge. Lucas had developed into a talented young scientist, already winning regional science fairs and talking about wanting to study engineering. Nathan's artistic abilities had blossomed, and his paintings and drawings often reflected the themes of family, love, and resilience that had shaped his young life. Both boys maintained close relationships with all three of their parent figures. They spent weekdays with Alex and Sarah, weekends with Isabella, and holidays rotating between different combinations that honored everyone's role in their lives. The boys had also become advocates for other children in non-traditional family situations. They volunteered with organizations that helped kids in foster care, children of divorce, and families dealing with loss. Their own experience had taught them that different doesn't mean broken, and they shared that message with other children who needed to hear it. As Alex reflected on the journey that had brought his family to where they were, he often thought about the lessons embedded in their story. Life rarely unfolds according to our plans, but sometimes the detours lead us to destinations more beautiful than anything we could have imagined. He had learned that being a father isn't just about biology, it's about showing up, making sacrifices, and choosing to love consistently even when it's difficult. The boys had made him a father not through genetics, but through their willingness to trust him with their hearts. The family had learned that communication and honesty can overcome almost any obstacle. By being truthful about their feelings, needs, and challenges, they had created a family structure that worked for everyone involved, rather than forcing themselves into a traditional model that didn't fit their reality. Most importantly, they had all learned that family is defined not by structure, but by commitment. Their family didn't look like anything they had planned, but it was built on foundations of love, respect, and genuine care for each other's well-being. 10 years after two 7-year-old boys had walked into his office and changed his life forever. Alex stood in the same spot by his office windows, but this time he wasn't alone. Lucas and Nathan, now 17, stood beside him, both nearly as tall as their father, looking out at the city that had become their home. "Dad," Lucas said, using the name that had evolved naturally over the years, "do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't found you that day?" Alex put his arms around both boys, marveling at how much they had grown. "I try not to think about that. I can't imagine my life without you two." Nathan grinned. "Good thing we were persistent, and good thing you didn't have security throw us out." "Never," Alex laughed. "Best business decision I ever made was listening to two 7-year-olds who insisted I was their father." As they stood there together, Alex thought about all the people who had contributed to their family's success. Isabella, who had courageously let her sons find their father and then gracefully supported the family structure that made everyone happiest. Sarah, who had loved them all enough to help create something new rather than demanding something traditional. Margaret, who had become the world's best surrogate grandmother. The teachers, coaches, friends, and extended family members who had embraced their unconventional structure and supported the boys' growth. The boys were preparing for college now, both having been accepted to prestigious universities. They had grown into remarkable young men who understood that love comes in many forms and that families can be built in countless ways as long as they're built with intention and care. Alex's story had become a testament to the power of openness, flexibility, and putting children's needs first. It proved that sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones that don't fit traditional molds, but are crafted with love, patience, and willingness to prioritize relationships over conventions. As the sun set over the city, Alex realized that he had indeed gotten everything he had ever wanted. He was a father, he had found love, and he had built a family. It just looked different than anything he had ever imagined, and that had made it even more precious. The boys had taught him that sometimes the best things in life walk through your door when you least expect them, announce themselves with complete confidence, and refuse to accept any answer except love. Thank you for watching this powerful story of love, forgiveness, and unexpected family. If it touched your heart, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who believes in second chances. And if you'd like to experience more emotional love stories like this one, hit that subscribe button and join us for the next chapter.